What if I told you there was a signing that could literally change the entire fortunes of a football club? No, I'm not talking about De Bruyne going to Napoli, I'm not talking about Chelsea signing a new number 9, and I'm not talking about any player that United bring in to save their club. I'm talking about Semenyo potentially signing for Tottenham Hotspur and how that transfer could transform the London club. Okay, so I know this sounds like I'm just waxing lyrical about Semenyo as a player, and I am well aware that a lot of Ghanaian fans, a lot of Ghanaian nationals may not see Semenyo as the player that I am referencing in this video, mainly because he's not putting the best performances in a Black Star shirt to date. We've seen it in patches, but the way we expected Semenyo to burst onto the scene in a Ghana shirt, we haven't seen the best of him. I'm well aware of that. I'm also not disputing that him coming into the team has coincided with a very bad run and a fall off, with the Black Stars in general. I think he came in just before the 2022 World Cup. I'm not sure if he played the qualifiers against Nigeria. I don't recall him playing, but I know he was called up for the World Cup. And yeah, I mean, he hasn't gone on leaps and bounds since that call up. He has shown a few promising, performances here and there. The last game we played in the World Cup qualifying against Chad, he finally got a goal. Not his first goal, but after a while, he because we went on a very bad run of form, he got his goal. It was a very good performance from him, and a lot of players began actually seeing, what made Semenyo exactly the kind of player that people have built him up to be. But for Bournemouth this season, the season that just ended, we've seen exceptional quality from the player, right? Like when I say world-class quality, I mean world-class quality. Keep in mind, this was a team that had just lost arguably their best player in Dominic Solanke to Tottenham Hotspur. So there was a bit of worry, that the team would struggle to kick on from where they did the season before, because they kind of felt that during that period that Solanke was the out and out guy in Spurs in Bournemouth, carrying the team to good performances and to the finish that they ultimately achieved that season. But this time around, we've seen, especially with their manager Iraola, we've seen Semenyo unleashed in a very different capacity. And all of this long talk is to say that he is a player that I think is well suited to a big club just because of the versatility that this player possesses. Like I did with the Kudus video, I'm going to break down why this is a very good transfer for both the player and the club. I'm going to start with the club Spurs. So we know Spurs have essentially missed out on a lot of their attacking talent this season, or the season that just went by. Their worst ever finish, their worst ever performance, 17th with the most defeats they've ever had as a club in history, and without going down. That was a very bad season for Spurs. Despite them winning a trophy, an important trophy nonetheless, which was the UEFA Europa League, they will need to rebuild in a sense, and which is why they've gotten rid of their manager Ange Postecoglou and they've brought in Thomas Frank into the side. Now we know Thomas Frank is a huge admirer of Antoine Semenyo, and in the past, I'm sure he would have loved to have him at Brentford, especially considering that Brentford, in my opinion, struggle with wide players. I off the top of my head, I can't really name a Brentford wide player. I know Visa and Mbeumo play as dovetailing almost off each other. Mbeumo playing as a second striker. Mbeumo is actually a right winger, but he kind of drifts in and dovetails as a second striker. And I think Brentford generally suffers from that malaise of not having an out-and-out winger. Semenyo isn't an out-and-out winger, I'm going to be very honest. I wouldn't put him in that same bracket. And he kind of plays a bit like Mbeumo in a sense of he can play all across the front line. But I think that's exactly what Spurs need. Now, hear me out. Spurs had Solanke from Bournemouth, and he's their out-and-out number 9. Albeit he's been injured most of the season, so we haven't seen the best of him. Spurs have generally struggled to fit square pegs in round holes. And so when Solanke was out, we saw Son trying to play in that number 9 role sometimes. We saw other players, trying to come in and fill that hole. Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, all of which didn't necessarily, go to plan. And I think this Spurs front line is crying out for a player of Semenyo's versatility and his quality. He's an exceptional dribbler. he can finish with both feet, as you've seen for Bournemouth last season. He's strong in the air, he's strong as well, technically very sound, and he's a willing runner and tracker back. So off of the wings or even playing up top, he can certainly do a job. I think he'll probably most likely come in not as an out-and-out guaranteed starter, because you'd assume that a front three of Son, Solanke and Brennan Johnson are probably going to be the mainstays. Kulusevski as well plays in the wings sometimes, but as we've seen with their injury worries this season, and some of those players also advancing in age like Son, we can't necessarily guarantee that they are always going to play week in, week out. It's very telling that the Europa League final, Son started off the bench, and Richarlison, who is an out-and-out number 9, ended up playing as one of the wingers in the team. Crazy stats to think about, but with a player like Semenyo in the ranks, and also a player like Semenyo who has proven exceptional fitness, I think it's going to be very important for Spurs to have a player of that profile in the team that can play across the front line. He can play left, he can play right, he can play up top, as he's done for Bournemouth before, as he's done for Black Stars. And I think they interchange in Bournemouth especially quite well with him, Justin Kluivert, interchanging very well. So honestly, I'd say this is a no-brainer for Spurs. He's going to come in relatively affordable as well, not a massive wage demand for the player either, because he's not, the known quantity that, other players of a similar mold would demand. And Spurs are all about that fiscal responsibility. So I think it's a perfect signing for Tottenham Hotspur. Now, why do I think this is a perfect signing for the player Semenyo? Well, for one, he gets to play in the Champions League. Now, Spurs did a madness this season. Despite finishing 17th, they managed to qualify for the Champions League by winning the UEFA Europa League. And that would bring them, a lot of leverage in signing some players. And I think Semenyo, looking at where he is in his career, his age, he's not too old, but he's not the youngest as well. I think he probably knows that he won't get too many chances to play in Europe's elite competition, for one of the biggest clubs in London as well. I mean, I know Spurs fans and Arsenal fans love to take their piss out of Spurs, but Spurs have a European trophy, mind you. They won a European trophy last season. They won a trophy more than Arsenal can say. So I think that allure of playing in London, and I think Semenyo, he looks like a guy who will enjoy playing in London. Will also enjoy playing in the Champions League as well. And all of those competitions, you would best believe that rotation would most likely be the way that Spurs would approach this extra workload. And so I can see Semenyo getting starts in the Champions League, group stages. I can see him getting starts in the FA Cup, sometimes in the Premier League. So honestly, for a player like that, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Coming from Bournemouth, who, they have overachieved in the last few years, but the best, they can hope for is an 8th or a 7th. I mean, look at Forest. Forest had a whole lot more investment than Bournemouth, who lost arguably their best player, and they were 4th for a long time, but still fell out and are now playing Conference League. So the reality is that Spurs are only going to improve, would more than likely challenge for one of the top 4 or top 5 places next season. He gets to play Champions League football. He gets to elevate his career, probably have more eyeballs on him, and it will certainly not hurt his chances in, getting a call up for the 2026 World Cup, even though Ghana probably see him as one of the more important players in the side. We also can't deny that there's a lot of competition for the wing places, and so if Bournemouth are struggling, if Bournemouth, are not exactly playing well, he could be overlooked. Now, one pitfall I see for the player potentially is if he doesn't get the minutes that he needs in order to sharpen his skills and hone his abilities. We know, again, a World Cup year coming up, every player will want to keep playing week in, week out to ensure that they are not overlooked by their national team. And so if he's going to Spurs just to sit on the bench and not get any minutes, it could really prove detrimental to his chances of playing in the World Cup. But honestly, I don't see that happen. Spurs are not a big enough club, and they don't have enough talent where for sure he won't get minutes, right? Because we know Son is there, we know Brennan Johnson is there, we know Kulusevski is there. But aside from that, I know Werner is leaving, and also who knows the future of Spurs, of Son, right? Because Son, young, old, almost called him young. He's an old player. And more than likely, I can see him being rotated as well, probably maybe shifted to another role in the team. So I think he'll get minutes. I mean, we can't tell the future, but it's likely he will get minutes. And I think the minutes he gets, he'll probably show his quality because he has a lot of Premier League experience as well, and playing through the the ranks of English football. Started in the Championship, started probably low. I remember him playing for Bristol City. I think that's the team, Bristol City. And he did quite well there as well. So, I mean, that's about it. Semenyo to Tottenham Hotspur is a game changer. A player like Semenyo who can play across the front line and be available, and is a clinical finisher with both feet, left and right, strong, fast, skillful, and can track back. I think it's a no-brainer for either side to get this signing done. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on this potential transfer in the comment section below. Do you think Semenyo will sign for Tottenham? And if he does, do you think he will be a smash hit for the London club? Let me know in the comment section, guys. And if you enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel Oyibo Sports, and as always, I go see you for streets.